Great to have that quiet moment with God and that time in communion. And thank you, Jim, for sharing that meditation. We continue our series we started last week on camp lessons from the book of Numbers, where speaking about stories out of the book of Numbers where the Israelites were moving from Mount Sinai to the Promised Land, and instead of taking it 12 days, it took them 40 years to get there. So we're talking about that today. I wanted to share a story with you from a camp in Wyoming, and a nature preserve. Apparently, they put out a suggestion box for people who wanted to share with them ideas about how to make the camp better. Here's some of the suggestions they received. Trails should be reconstructed. Please avoid building them on uphills. Thank you. There's too many bugs and spiders. Please eradicate them from the wilderness. How about this one? The coyotes are making too much noise at night and I can't sleep. Please get rid of them. It's crazy. I like this one. Escalators should be put on uphill walks. And then there's many more, but let me give you this one. Can you put a McDonald's at the trailhead? That was for every parent that was hearing their kids say, give me chicken McNuggets. Yes, some of you know what I'm talking about. Today we look at a story out of the book of Numbers. Here's what's happening. Let me give you a little background. Israel came out of the Exodus, left Egypt. God shows up in a powerful, powerful way, uses the plagues to extract his people, 2 million plus, out of Egypt. They get to the Red Sea. It looks like they're going to be destroyed. God shows up, separates the Red Sea so they can walk to the other side. He escorts them to Mount Sinai, where his presence comes down on the mountain. They see God himself and his presence on the mountain and receive this gift called the 10 Commandments. And the presence of God speaks into them, into their lives, the law that he wants them to live by as a nation. They're there. They're seeing God in all of this. This all happens for about 2.5 years. And then his presence lifts off of the tent. We talked about the tent of meeting and the tabernacle and organizing the nation last week. And he's got it all ready for them to move forward. And his presence lifts from the tent and they're ready to march to their promised land. What a day. Incredible experience. Doesn't take them more than a few days, weeks. And they start complaining. Doesn't take us more than a few minutes to start complaining. And that's what we're going to talk about in Numbers chapter 11 today. I think that this particular chapter is built for you and your family, for me and my family, to look at complaining totally different. And I know it's going to speak to you today, and I hope you're humble enough to receive what God's trying to teach all of us about emptying the camp of our complaints today. Here's how it starts. Numbers chapter 11. They're on their way to the promised land. This is early in their journey. And it says, now the people complained about their hardships in the hearing of the Lord. And when God heard them, his anger was aroused. And then fire from the Lord burned among them and consumed some of the outskirts of the camp. When the people cried out to Moses, he prayed to the Lord and the fire died down. So that place was called Taberah, because fire from the Lord had burned among them. There's so much to talk about in this chapter. Let me just briefly show you that this is showing us one of the two reasons we start to complain. One of the two causes of complaints, one of them is comparison. We compare ourselves with what we perceive other people have. You've done that before, haven't you? You've compared yourself to others or thought you were losing out on what other people were gaining, and they start complaining. Now that Hebrew word, complaining, means to express dissatisfaction for what you got deprived of. To express dissatisfaction for what you think is owed you. Now, let's just be honest. Those of you that are watching at home, come on. How many of you have complained in the last 24 hours? Just let's see some honest hands. I know you just had communion. You're not going to lie to God now, okay? I'm guessing many of you have complained in the last 24 hours. Diana didn't because she knew what the message was about, so she hadn't said anything all the last day. But the rest of you have complained. I'm guessing maybe in the last hour. Complain about somebody delaying you getting to church. Some of you complaining about going to church. Some of you complaining about it's too cold or it's too hot, the music's too loud, I don't know the songs. You got your whole list and it's infectious, and we start comparing ourselves to what we want it to be, and the first thing out of our mouth is complaint. And here's what's so interesting out of this text. It makes God mad. Did you realize that? Every complaint you make about your life makes God upset. I doubt you thought of that when you were complaining. I know I don't. But here's why. Complaining is not just an attitude issue, it's a spiritual issue. Here's what you're saying when you complain, when I complain. Number one, God needs me. Like, God, I know you're not paying attention. I know you don't know what's going on. I know you don't realize what's happening here. But let me explain it to you, God. You forgot to take care of me. You need my help to tell you how to do things. You need reminded about what's going on in my life so that you can correct it and make it right for me. That's what you're saying. You're saying, God, you need me to help you on this because apparently you don't know what's going on. I thought you'd laugh at that. Second thing you're saying is, God, you owe me. Like, this isn't what I asked for. This isn't what I wanted. This isn't what I deserved. This wasn't what I expected. I gave my life to you, God. You were in charge of me. The whole nation of 2 million people are complaining. Why? Because they think God owes them more. Heaven, help them. Think about it. They just were rescued from Egypt. They just crossed the Red Sea. They've just been given manna from heaven to feed them every day. They have been blessed over and over again, but that's not enough. God, you still owe me. And worst of all, what they were telling the rest of the world around them by their complaining, this is what hurts me the most. What I'm telling the rest of the world around me when I complain out loud is that God failed me. That he must not be a good God. That he apparently has not performed the way he should have. And listen, every time you and I complain, we're basically slapping God in the face, saying you're not good enough. You need to do better. Now, here's why God was so mad at that. You know what they just did? They just broke the first 3 commandments. You shall have no other gods before me. I'm in charge. You shall not take my name in vain. That's basically you've slapped my name around. You shall not make an idol out of anything in this world. Well, now you're complaining because you didn't get the idol you wanted. You've just violated the 3 commands that I started with. Of course he's upset. And he calls out punishment to get their attention. Because complaining will destroy you if you don't correct it. Here's what they were doing. Complaining put the focus on comparison instead of blessing. And he's trying to say, don't you pay attention? Don't you see what I'm doing? I'm blessing your life. Why are you complaining? Be careful when you start comparing your life to somebody else's, because the result of that will be complaints. Second thing happens right after that. You'd think they'd get the lesson, wouldn't you? Like, people are dying at the edge of the camps. Why the edge of the camps? I have a theory. The more you complain about God, the further away you get from his presence. So my theory is that they were on the outskirts of the camp because they wanted to get away from the tent of meeting. But that doesn't stop them. They still keep going. Look what it says in verse 4. The rabble with them began craving other food, and again the Israelites started wailing and said, if only we had meat to eat. We remember the fish we ate in Egypt at no cost, and the cucumbers and melons and leeks and onions and garlic. Oh my. But now we have lost our appetite. We never see anything but this manna. They're craving other delicacies. They're craving other food. And I brought my cooler with me today, my camping cooler here, because this is kind of what it is. All of you have been on trips where you've started the complaining, haven't you? Okay, parents, 10 minutes into the drive, right? What do you hear from the back seat? Apparently all of you have the same kid. You get there and you pull out the cooler and you pull out the food and everybody's got their lunch kit and they're like, wow, what do we got for lunch? And they pull out a peanut butter sandwich. Want to trade? No, mommy, I don't want a peanut butter. I want McDonald's chicken nuggets. This is not an advertisement for McDonald's, I'm just saying right now. Isn't it interesting how quickly we can start finding something to complain about? And it's so amazing to me. I don't know how McDonald's did this. I don't know how other people have done this. But think about it. What do they put in those chicken McNuggets that make you crave them? What is it about Disney that makes people crave it? Don't answer that. What is it about money and things of this world that make us crave them? It says here the rabble began to crave other food. The rabble, if you understand what that term is, what that's describing is a group of people that traveled with Israel out of Egypt. This was not Israelites. This was Egyptians or other nationalities that were enslaved there or part of this. And they bolted out of Egypt with the Israelites to get away from the Pharaoh and all of the punishments they were receiving. So this rabble comes along for the ride, but they're not committed to God. And they start complaining about what they don't get to eat anymore. And instead of rallying the nation together, what they're doing is creating an infection, a virus of complaining with everybody that divides people. That's why you see this group identified and divides the nation between them and God. Complaining does that. It creates division. It doesn't create solutions. And before we start condemning them, maybe we should look at ourselves in the mirror. Because your complaining and my complaining does more to divide our families and our homes and our work and our community than it does to help bring solutions. Oprah Winfrey, you probably know this, does these shows now annually. She started this a few years back where she gives these special gifts to people. It's like this giveaway show, and they do these and crazy gifts of people. She started this back in, I think, 2014, maybe before that. And the first episode she did this on, she called 11 people to the stage that family members had written in how much they needed a new car. Some of them were taking the bus to work. Some of them had no money for a car. Some of them, had this old, dilapidated car they were repairing all the time. And all these people had written in saying, man, our family member, our wife, our mother, or whatever needs a new car. And so she brought these 11 people on stage, gave them all a little box and said, we have a gift for you. And they opened the box, and here inside are keys to a brand new Pontiac G6. Then, if that wasn't celebratory enough, she gives every member of the audience a box and says, one of you has just received the 12th Pontiac G6. Let's open your box and see who gets it. And all of them opened their box, and every person in the audience got a Pontiac. Too bad you didn't sign up for that day, right? But then, a couple months later, all of these people were registering their complaints about the gift. Why? Because they didn't realize that there's a gift tax involved with receiving gifts on Oprah. And so now they were complaining about Oprah not giving them the cash to pay the taxes in addition to the car. Hello? Sounds like rabble to me. And friends, I know this is very blunt. This is very direct. You got to read yourself in this text. That's what makes the Bible so amazing. But when have you been a rabble? When have you allowed your complaining to infect that of the family and friends and loved ones you have in your life? When has it created division instead of drawn people to unity? I don't know about you, but I feel like this past year, COVID is not the virus that we were most infected with. Complaining is the virus we were most infected with. And we have to do something about it. Look at verse 10. Moses heard the people of every family. If you mark in your Bible, that is a phrase to mark right there. Moses heard the people of every family wailing at the entrance to their tents. And the Lord became exceedingly angry, and Moses was troubled. And if you're sitting there and you're realizing that you've got a complaint issue, a spiritual issue to solve today, then you're in the right place. Because now we're going to turn the camera to Moses and see what he does different to rid himself in the camp of complaints. And this is what I want to tell you the lesson is for today. Camp lesson number 1. If you've gone camping, you've dealt with complaining, whether it's a backache from the bed or food that you didn't enjoy or the cleaning after you get back, you know what I'm talking about. Today at Journey Christian Church, online and in person, we are cleaning out the complaints. Can I get an amen? That's what we're going to do today. Here's what Moses did. He turned to the Lord, verse 11. And he said, God, why have you brought this trouble on your servant? What have I done to displease you that you put the burden of all these people on me? Did I conceive all these people? Did I give them birth? Why do you tell me to carry them in my arms as a nurse carries an infant to the land you're promised on oath to be to their ancestors? Where can I get enough meat to feed all these people? They keep wailing to me. Give us meat to eat. I can't carry all these people by myself. God, the burden is too heavy for me. If this is how you're going to treat me, please just go ahead and kill me now. If I found favor in your eyes, and do not let me face this ruin. You know what he's doing? Do you hear it? He's complaining. Moses is human too. But he did something different here. He took his complaint to the Lord. They were complaining about God, around God, in cause of God. He wasn't meeting their need, doing what they wanted. Moses turns and tells God what's on his heart. That's so different. If you're going to get rid of complaints, you got to take those complaints to the Lord in confession. And notice that he didn't even complain about food. This wasn't even about food to Moses. In the midst of that prayer, he tells God his real issue. His real issue is he feels burdened. He feels overloaded. He doesn't know what to do. He has no solution. God, I don't know what else to do, and this is what you've given me, and I have nobody to help me. God, that's what's going on. And God honored that because that was his real issue. See, friends, when you feel like complaining, stop telling everybody else and start talking to the Lord. You know, the reason we have so much complaining going on these days is because we'd rather do more complaining than praying. Turn it back to him. God honors that. He's not afraid of your complaints. He just doesn't want you defaming his name by giving them to everybody else. And that's what Moses does. He turns it to God, and God says, hey, I got a solution for you. I won't read it to you. You can read this. But down in verse 8, or down a little bit further, he says, bring me 70 of Israel's elders. I'm going to delegate some of my spirit to you, from you to them. I'm going to give them some of the duty so you're not carrying this alone. Moses, stop complaining about it. Let's be resourceful. Let's use what you have. Boy, isn't it interesting when you complain, you forget to look for solutions. You just rather look at the problem. Moses, I've got people in reserve ready to help you. All you have to do is let me put that spirit on them. And you can read the rest of the chapter. He actually brings in 70 people. 68 of them show up. 2 of them still stay away from Moses. But all 70 are given the spirit as God promised, and they start to carry the burden for Moses. And I just hit the pause button on this chapter for a minute and said to myself, complaining helps me turn to God for better solutions. When I feel like complaining, God has a better solution in mind. And I need to take it to him to find out what it is. And friends, if you feel like you walked in, you're complaining right now, you feel that spirit in your house, you feel that in your home, I suggest to you today that you hit the pause button. You just shared in communion. He is with you. We just sang that song. He is for you, and he has solutions to help you. But quit making the complaint about him and turn to him for the solution. Take your cravings to him in confession. And then God says, okay, that's how I'm going to help you, Moses. Now let me help the people. Verse 18, tell the people, consecrate yourselves in preparation for tomorrow, when you will eat meat. Oh, you're going to eat meat. The Lord heard when you wailed, if only we had meat to eat. We're better off in Egypt. Now the Lord will give you meat to eat. You can almost hear the sarcasm in the statement. And you will eat it. You will not eat it for just 1 day or 2 days or 5 or 10 or 20. You're going to eat it for a whole month until it comes out of your nostrils and you loathe it. Hey, I have an idea. Let's eat chicken McNuggets for the next 30 days. I used to think I could eat pizza for 30 days. That lasted 3. I'm going to give you meat to eat for 30 days, and you're going to hate it. Because you've rejected the Lord who is among you and have wailed before him. So he brings quail in the next day. Quail covering the camp as far as a day's journey away. Quail that just was within hand's reach. They could go out and collect all this quail. Oh, this is so cool. God gave us meat to eat. We're all going to eat meat. And that's all they get for 30 days. You know what he told them to do? He told them to consecrate themselves. You have to understand what that means. To consecrate themselves. Consecrating yourself to God means I'm going to turn over to God the thing that I crave. If I crave money, I'm going to consecrate myself by turning that over to God and let him be in charge. If I crave food, I'm going to consecrate myself and fast and give that over to God and let him be in charge of the food supply in my life. If I crave relationship, I'm going to quit trying to go find it for myself, and I'm going to turn that over to God and consecrate myself so that he can have control of relationship. Everything that they craved, if they would turn it over to God in consecration, he would answer that need in a proper way. Now listen, if you consecrate yourself, you're fasting. So when the quail flies in, guess what? You wouldn't be eating the quail. The only people eating the quail are the ones not consecrating themselves. And you'll read at the end of the chapter, they're the ones that get punished. They can't even swallow the food before God's plague hits them. But I think that speaks to you today. Do a little heart check. What have you been complaining about? Consecrate it to the Lord. Turn it over to him. Let him have control. And he will remove the craving and fill you with what he wants to give you. I wish we could get this as a nation. You know what our nation needs to do? We need to turn ourselves back over to him. And then he will answer the needs of our nation. Do you know what your family needs to do right now? You need to turn your family back over to God and let him meet the needs of your family. You know what you need to do right now, if you've been complaining at all, is you need to turn yourself over to him and let him meet your need. Consecrate yourself. You can be consumed by your complaints, or you can consecrate them and let him have control. How do you do that? Well, got a couple suggestions. Years ago, when we were raising our daughter Heather, we realized one spring that, man, our house is full of sarcasm. Like, I'm not even going to have you raise your hand if you're sarcastic comments in your house. Our house was full of sarcasm. And I came up with this brilliant idea. I gave Diana and myself and Heather some rolls of coins, and I came up and I created a sarcasm jar. And every time somebody said a sarcastic comment, the others could call them on it, and they had to put coins in the sarcasm jar. I think I had to do quarters, Diana had dimes, and Heather had pennies. I noticed something happened pretty rapidly. Diana got quiet. Yeah. Couldn't catch her in a sarcastic comment. She just didn't say anything. My daughter Heather got inquisitive. She started asking me all kinds of questions, knowing that as I complained about their sarcasm, it was me with the problem. I got poor really fast. But we did have a great dinner on vacation that summer. I want to suggest to you today, you need to start identifying that complaining spirit in your house. Start a complaint jar. I think coins would be a good way for you to hear it and feel it when you find yourself complaining. Because my guess is you don't even notice you're doing it. And you need to draw attention to it. Start a complaint jar. You can give me the money later. Friends, we can laugh about this, but it's a serious problem. I hope you're realizing that today. We feel like it's our right to complain. But it's a slap in the face of our God. This is the God who didn't complain about us. He laid down his life for us. And that's how much he loved you and me. So what are we complaining about? We have been blessed. Focus on the blessings instead of the comparison. We have been given great connection to the God Most High. Focus on the connection and drawing people together instead of dividing on our cravings. You have so much to be thankful for. So put an end to the complaining in your camp. And Jesus, we ask for your help on this. You told us, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and everything else will be added to us. Please don't let us be part of the rabble anymore. Help us to be people of joy and thanksgiving, focusing on the blessings instead of our comparison, focusing on what you're doing in our life instead of what we crave for our life. I know this is hard, and we're all guilty. But today we look to you as the one who is king of our camp to help us remove all the complaining. Bless us in that in Jesus' name.